So last year, which was actually 2021, we had the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympic Games. And right after the opening ceremony, I turned on my phone and I made this 1 hour long video about the games and about my love of the games and about the whole procedure of the opening ceremonies. And this was very exciting. I end up doing actually videos every day of the Olympics, and it really got me going. It's something that I really, really love. So now we just had the opening of the Winter Games in Beijing 2022. Today is actually the 4th of February of 2022. And although I don't think I will do videos every day, because my understanding of the Winter Games, or rather winter sports, is not as good as my understanding of summer sports, I did think it was worth putting another video online, explaining a few things and recalling a few things that I said before. So first of all, if you want to understand a little bit more about the games, I would recommend you to watch the other videos that I made, because I do explain why, the games are as long as they are, and why some sports have to start before the opening of the games. Why do we have these ceremonies? So I explain a little bit this kind of backstage, behind the scenes of the games, which is, again, the same case for the Winter Olympics. Today we have the opening, but that said, we have some sports or some federations that have to start their agendas just a few days before. So we have this program within the time frame of the games, right? So that's one of the things that I wanted to say. Another thing that I wanted to say is that Winter Games are a little bit different because the venues are a bit different. So again, venues is a word that I have used in this channel before, and it means the space where you're gonna have this spectacle of one sport. That means an arena or a stadium, but it could be, for example, the case of the Winter Games, it could be mountains. So it's not exactly an arena, but you will have a certain setup that will allow that sport to be played and judged and watched, right? So that's a venue. And exactly what happened in Winter Games is that you have maybe a bigger separation of the types of venues that you would have, because you would have these mountain sports happening, of course, in the mountains, which can sometimes be not too close of the city center in some of the hosts of the Winter Games. And then on the other hand, you will have sports that are played indoors. For example, curling or figure skating or speed skating, that are indoor venues with ice, or hockey. You have quite a few of those. The thing is that we are now having the games in Beijing. Beijing is the first city to host the Winter and the Summer Games, which is quite nice in a way. But also, to make a little parenthesis, can also mean that not every city can host the games, and that can be a problem for the IOC, but maybe that's the subject for another video. But anyways, they are a city that they're doing that. They're hosting the games now after the Summer Games in 2008, where I've been there. I was there in 2008. It was very exciting. And they are reusing a lot of these winter, or a lot of these venues, I want to say, for these winter indoor sports. For example, we just saw now at the opening, they are reusing the bird's nests, which we also had the opening and the closing ceremonies for 2008. And we also had the athletics happening there. Right next to it, you have the water cube, which in 2008 we had the swimming, and now we have the curling events. So it's super exciting, I think, because in this whole discussion of legacy and what do we do with sports arenas, this comes to prove that you can adapt venues to new uses and new sports, and I think that's very important. So this is something very nice, and if you watch some images of the games, you will see that they actually took quite a few shots of all these venues that make up the Olympic Park, exactly to show we are using these again. They're beautiful. They were made for the games in 2008, and now we're using them again. So I think that's something to be said, a nod to 2008. And then on top of that, we have the whole opening itself, which is quite a spectacle. Personally, again, it's something that I quite like. Not everyone likes it because some people are just there for the games, for the sports. But if you want to understand, please do go to my video of my 1 hour long video where I explain the whole protocol of the opening and why some things happen the way that they happen in a certain order. So we have some things that happen always the same. So you always have the athletes, you always have the flag bearers, you always have the white doves. So you always have such things. It's no different for the Winter Games. We were able to see that tonight. And what else? Something that I wanted to talk again. I spoke a lot in my last video of the summer game about the uniforms, and again, it's something that I really pay attention because for the opening they are wearing their team uniform. So the delegation of each National Olympic Committee has their uniform, the presentation uniform. That's the delegation uniform, and then afterwards they will have their own clothing specific for their sports, of course. A figure skater, she's not gonna walk into the stadium with a small dress. They will have the full jacket of the full uniform of their country, and I think that's very nice because this is a chance that each nation has to showcase a little bit their colors, a little bit of how they are playful or they are more formal. And you can totally see that in the uniforms. Of course, in the summer games, it's a bit easier, I want to say, to showcase sometimes traditional clothing. That said, we did have some traditional clothing in these games. I want to mention some specific. Do go back and watch the flag bearers of Kazakhstan, the flag bearers of American Samoa, by the way, who was topless, which was really nice and really brave of him, the flag bearers of Mongolia, and the flag bearers of New Zealand. And those were very typical ones. But also pay attention to the uniforms of East Timor, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia. By the way, first time Saudi Arabia are in the Winter Games, super nice. Colombia, for example, they had ponchos on top of their, winter gear. I thought this was super nice. I really loved Canada's uniform. I think Canada always makes this big thing about Winter Olympics, especially in Vancouver when they hosted the games in 2010. They had the full winter mints where, it said Canada, everybody wanted to buy them. They became a fever. And from that point on, they always do very nice uniforms. So I recommend you take a look at that. Haiti's uniform was super nice. I think Haiti was able to translate in a winter clothing something very summery and something very happy. So you can really totally see they are people who live in the summer and they're happy people. Also, I really like the Mexico uniform with the skeletons in front. Russia, I wanted to make a comment about Russia. Russia is still not going into the games as Russia. They are still using the Olympic Committee of Russia. I do speak about that in my other videos if you want to listen a bit more about that, or leave me a question if you have a specific question. But so you can see that they have uniforms that don't really translate their colors. They were not allowed to wear red, by the way. They had uniforms that were pre-approved by the IOC. And I also always pay attention to two countries that I really love because they use very, very specific colors every games. So the orange of the Netherlands, it's a very precise orange, and both for the summer and winter games, they have that one tone of orange, and it's amazing. They always have interesting designs. And the green of Slovenia, I think is the same. It's a very, very specific kind of lime green, and you can always tell, okay, that's either an athlete or even a supporter of Slovenia, because you know that green. Moving forward a little bit, not to make this video super long, I really loved that they showed the Stronger Together video. If you haven't seen that video, it is in the official channels of the Olympic YouTube channel. It is nice because it shows people making efforts as athletes. And I think personally that the message is a bit that we are all a little bit heroes. We were all going through something very strong in the last few years, and this brings us all a little bit closer together. You know, it stops on making those campaigns where athletes are such unattainable things and we are really like small people in comparison. I think it brings a little bit more the human side of athletes. So I really liked that they showed again, because this video was already launched last week. And then we had something important to be said as well about the speech of the president, Thomas Bach, the president of the International Olympic Committee. It was a very strong speech. He made, of course, about the country. He speaks about being the year of the tiger, the Chinese New Year, which he always does. There's always a very polite, protocol-y part of the speech where he's talking about, you know, the country welcoming the games. So this is very obvious. He always thanks the volunteers, which is personally something that I really love, because I have been a volunteer and I really have appreciation for Olympic volunteers. I also have a video about volunteers in my channel. And he does speak about COVID, which I also thought was a nice touch, because they could let this go a bit, because in a few years people will see this speech and kind of forget. But I think it was important that he said, no, we are still going through this, and we thank everyone that made the effort to be here. I think this is a plus that he mentioned that. But ultimately, his speech was very strong in the political sense. I'm saying it wasn't really strong, but I'm saying strong because, of course, the IOC always has this neutral position. They are ultimately not a political institution in principle. In fact, they are a reunion of many countries that are deciding to participate together in these events. But they try very hard to abstain, even though the games become, every time that there are games, political stages for whatever's going on in the world. So I think the fact that he really made a case about peace, he even said, you know, the famous sentence, give peace a chance. I think ultimately it was an important feature of his speech, that he really, you know, he really touched that note of saying, no, let's please respect the Olympic truce, especially because things in Europe are heating up slowly with the Ukraine-Russia situation. So I don't think that was casually because we always mention peace. I really think it was a statement of, let's please try to be together. The games are meant to be a celebration. I speak about this all the time in my life. Games are a celebration, and I think it was important that he said that. So ultimately, there is a lot to be said about the games. I think also there is a lot of discussions that happen frequently about exactly these indoor sports, because if you really think about it, some sports that are played in the summer games, such as basketball and volleyball, they were actually invented many years ago, because in places like the Nordic countries, they couldn't do anything on the winter except skiing, but they could not play, you know, outside. So those sports were invented and developed exactly to be an alternative for winter, where you could play indoors. So why are these sports not in the winter program? So of course there are these nuances again of the backstage and of the conversations of the federations. And as I said in my past videos, again, it is true that before every games you do have a congress, and you do have all these federations coming together and analyzing Olympic programs, and analyzing what makes sense, analyzing what sports will be part of each games, of each edition of the games. New sports are coming on. I speak about the new sports that were played in 2020 for Tokyo, and sports that will carry on or even be new sports for Paris 2024. So these discussions are ongoing, and it's something also interesting to know once you are watching the Winter Games. You keep that in mind. So I think I will stop here this video, because I think I spoke a little bit about the opening and of, again, my love of the games. But I will try to put on my Instagram a few comments on a few things, and if you do have questions, again, this is something that I love, and I would be happy to either answer you or find the answer, because I don't know everything. Part of the point of these videos is to learn, is to inform not only you, but to try to inform myself. So I will again finish exactly like the president, wishing just peace for all of us, wishing the best for all the athletes. I'm sure this will be amazing games. I wish I was there. I'm very sad of not being there. I was there in 2008. The venues are looking amazing on TV. So I can only hope that these are amazing weeks to come, and that we have amazing performances. And I hope you stay tuned. Enjoy yourself.